This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and coming at us from his humble abode is our boy Anderson to give us this week's topics.
And boys at Humble. This week we try to agree on a Mount Rushmore for major Detroit sports teams, and we'll also take a look at a list of some of the most underperforming teams in NBA history. Welcome to another quarantine edition of the Fan Report.
Okay, well, another week of no sports, another week of no fun, another week of, well, for me, work. You, well, I don't know. It's been a struggle bus lately, trying to survive each day without the release of coming home from a long day at work and able to grab a beer and then sit and watch a game or watch some Sports Center or anything on there, or just kind of keep up on sports for the day. And I haven't been able to do that. It's another week of torment. That's what I'll call it. Torment.
It's really opened the playbook for us on the show, though. I'll be honest.
Yes, we've had to be very creative with what we come up with. That's for sure.
But no, dude. Like, it's like, I don't know about you, but like, it's real. Like, I don't even know what it's gonna feel like once we can finally get back to normal life. It feels like we've been in quarantine for,
you know what,
maybe
it's gonna
6
be
months.
It's gonna be sensory overload. We're just gonna get everything back all at once, and it's just gonna be like, oh my god, I can't handle this. Too much going on.
What's the first thing you're doing?
Going to the bar. Going out to eat and going to the bar.
Yeah, for me, it's gonna be going out to eat, grabbing a drink, and hitting a movie.
Yeah.
That's gonna be me.
Yep. If I spend $150 in one day because I did 3 different things, I don't care. I don't care. It's worth it. I need to go out to eat. I need to go to the bar, get a drink, and I like the movie idea. Not gonna lie, I miss going to movies.
I've been craving some legit barbecue, like.
Oh. Honest to God, I was watching. I have a
smoker to make it make a brisket the way I'd want to make a brisket,
right. And I don't either, but honest to God, I was watching Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives on the Food Network last night, and there was one episode at a barbecue place, and I think I started drooling at one point. I miss good barbecue that I can get hot and Yeah,
I'm watching a totally different food show. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Gordon Ramsay's 24 Hours to Hell. It's basically like kind of like Restaurant Impossible, but it's Gordon Ramsay, and he only gives himself 24 hours to do it. Basically,
interesting. No, I haven't seen that. I've seen
that one's quite a bit less appetizing.
I've seen what's the show that he does?
What, Hell's Kitchen?
No, it's kind of like Restaurant Impossible, but he doesn't give himself only 24 hours. I don't think. I don't know. I see him on Facebook. I see the videos on Facebook all the time, and I love it. It's a good show, good TV. But no, I need to go out to eat, and I need to go to the bar. Those are 2 things I honestly got missed the most. And honestly, I can't wait for golf to start back up.
Right.
I need the swing a golf club. I need to get out. I need to have a beer on the course, smoke a cigar, sit back in the golf cart. Hit a couple balls here and there. So that's kind of the point.
I feel like if they reopen golf, like during this quarantine, that we wouldn't have cards. I think if you just walk in,
100%. No, like the states because I believe it's 40 states or something like that still have golf courses operating. We're one of 5 to 10 states that close down golf courses, and I believe they've shut down all golf carts. I believe it's just walking only, which honestly, that's fine with me. I'll walk 9 holes. I don't give a shit. I'm not saying golf courses should be open. Personally, I'm not the expert. I don't claim to be an expert on all of this. I'm going to let the experts decide if it's a good idea or not. That's not my place to say. But I would personally, I understand it's not essential. It is not essential in any way. But if you're going to leave parks open, what's the total difference between a walk-only golf course and a park? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, that's not for me to say. I'm not the expert. I'm going to leave the decision making to the experts on this one. So
agreed.
But
But
I will be very happy once everything's lifted. Golf's back, bars are back, movies are back. I miss going to see a movie in a theater. My question is,
I miss the new movies in general.
I do too. My question is, of the movies that were delayed, what's gonna happen with those once this is lifted? Like, are they just gonna all release and flood the studios at
for
once?
example, like the MCU redid their slate.
Right, I knew that.
New release dates to all those movies. I know some movies are releasing through VOD.
Right.
The one that I was looking forward to is coming out this weekend, Saint Maud, that A24 horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't think they've announced a new date yet. At least I haven't seen one.
Interesting.
But yeah, you're like, I don't know if we're just going to have like 3 months of like 6 really good movies dropping per week.
Right. I don't know.
It's going to be insane. I might have to like do double features like twice a week.
Either way,
maybe this prompts movie theaters to bring that back. Back when they used to do double features where you buy.
I would hope so. Maybe it helps them recoup their loss a little bit from the quarantine. That'd be kind of cool if they did that. I mean, obviously things are going to be different once things are reopened. There's no question about that. This has allowed me to get some stuff done around my house. I mean, I just moved, so I've had no shortage of things to do.
Same. I mean, well, ish. I mean, I'm like way ahead. I've been just studying for no reason. Like
that is the saddest thing I think I've ever heard.
Like I have classes, but like I'm like so far ahead, and I just like keep going because I have nothing else to do. So
nice. But anyways, let's go ahead and hop into our first topic here.
Let's do it.
I don't know where I saw this or where I got this idea from. If I had to guess, it was probably Twitter. I wanted to kind of go through and do a Mount Rushmore of our 4 major sports teams here in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what I mean by that is I want to go throughout the history of the organizations, and that's the Lions, Pistons, Tigers, and Wings, and pick 4 guys. Doesn't have to be players, can be coaches, GMs, whatever you want to do. Pick 4 guys to be on your Mount Rushmore to represent that organization. Mm-hmm. And I figured we'd start with the Pistons and Lions and move into the Tigers and Wings, and go from there. But Andrew, who is on your Mount Rushmore? And if you want, we can do this together, where we pick 4 guys collectively. You can give your own. If we can go back and forth and argue about it.
I say we both pitch 4, and then we try to. Well, obviously we'll have overlap, and then see if we can agree on a set 4. All
right, then let's do that. So go ahead, give me your 4 for the Pistons.
For the Pistons,
yes.
Gotta go Isaiah.
I think Isaiah's no question.
Joe Dumars.
Okay, couple of bad boys there.
Yeah, a couple of bad boys.
See, the thing is with Dumars, he overlaps into the going to work crew area too because of the president of basketball operations. So that's a good one.
And not to mention, he still played a Teal era also.
Right, that is true.
He was involved like every era of
the last like 40, 50 years of Pistons basketball.
No, so Joey D, I got to go Ben Wallace, Big Ben. I mean, he embodied that going to work crew. He embodied that spirit of Detroit, I felt like. So I have 100%. To go him. And then part of me wants to go with my favorite Piston and Chauncey Billups. But you can also go like even older to the. I was gonna say you could even go to like Dave
DeBusschere, Dave DeBusschere, guys like that. I mean, those are guys that I would bring up as well because I feel like if you don't bring in the old era, you're missing an entire era of the Pistons organization. Where at least with because Chauncey is in my short list of guys I could think about for number 4. But guys like Dave Bing and Dave DeBusschere are also in there. You can also argue a guy like...
The thing they have going against him, though, is he didn't bring a championship.
They didn't bring a title, right.
Yeah.
But they are still etched in Pistons glory. I mean, their numbers in the rafters, along with just about everybody else, including the hot dog guy.
But I think those would be my 4. I think I'd throw Chauncey as my 4. I think those would be my 4 in my Mount Rushmore. I have to give a slight edge to Chauncey because of the championship.
See, but my thing is you already have a representative from that championship team, and the reason I put Joe,
they got two from the Bad Boys too.
Yes, but Joe Dumars represents multiple eras of this organization. He represents the GM of the Going to Work crew. That's why he's in it for me. If he wasn't the president of basketball operations for the Going to Work crew, I wouldn't put Joe Dumars in this. I would just have Isaiah from the Bad Boys.
Yeah.
But because he has that added GM aspect, that's where I'll throw him in there. But Ben will be my representative from the Going to Work crew, and I think I'm going to put Dave DeBuscher in there. I think we're just missing an entire representation of pre-1985 of Pistons lore, which is a massive amount of the organization. I mean, the Pistons organization is a historical one; it goes way back. And I think if you don't talk about the building blocks and what built the organization to what it is today, I think you're missing out. Just because they didn't win a title doesn't mean they aren't, legends of the sport. And I think Dave DeBuscher is one of those guys that represents that 100%. And have it in this way, we have a representative from not only each era, but also we have a front office representative as well in Joe Dumars. So that's how I would do it, just to give myself total representation of each era and everybody out there.
Yeah. I mean, Dave DeBuscher also is going from, he didn't retire a Piston, but he did come back to coach the Pistons.
He did. What kind of success did he have as a coach?
I don't think I think he was a player coach.
I think he was. I think you're right on that.
I gotta look this up now, because I remember him being a coach, but I think he might have been a player coach. Let's see. Yep. Because he was coach from 64 to 67. He was on the Pistons from 62 to 68. So, yeah, he was a player coach of the Pistons.
Interesting. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the Lions here. This one's a little more difficult because they don't have that Super Bowl. Their last NFL championship was 1957. Which obviously I would argue that I would say you're going to take the quarterback from that 1957 team.
I don't know who that quarterback is. Is it Bobby Lane?
I thought it was Tobin No, it was Bobby Lane. But, sorry, I'm looking at something else. That was Bobby Lane. Yeah. Well, no, he technically Bobby Lane was the quarterback in that. Bobby Lane was the quarterback of that team, but he got hurt a month before the NFL championship game. Tobin Rote was the quarterback in the NFL championship, but I'm still going to put Bobby Lane as. But
how much does the curse of Bobby Lane hurt his candidacy for Mount Rushmore?
None, because I think it's more of a curse of the Fords than anything. But with that being said, do we put the Ford family up there?
No. I think you're two easy shoe-ins. You got to put Barry in there. You got to put
Barry Sanders. Calvin Johnson I'll put up there.
I'll agree with you on Bobby Lane.
So then who else do we look at?
Names that come to mind, you can look at Stafford. You can look at a guy like Robert Porsche, one of the best defensive ends
he wasn't in Detroit long enough, though, I don't think. How long did Porsche play for the Lions?
What about a guy like
Scott Mitchell? No. No. I don't even think he was with Detroit all that long. Oh, no, Porsche played here his entire career. Who am I thinking of then? I don't know. I mean, you could look at a guy like Herman Moore. Say it again? You cut out. Do
you have any other candidates?
I mean, you could look at a guy like Herman Moore.
Herman Moore.
You could look at a guy like, even Dre Bly. Or
I used to love Dre Bly.
I love Dre Bly. I loved him in a Lions uniform.
I don't know if you could put him around Mount Rushmore. I just don't know.
No, I don't think so either. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you could look at a guy like Luther Ellis. You could look at a guy like Chris Spielman, Corey Schlesinger. Ooh. Those are all guys that.
The Slash.
I used to love Corey Schlesinger, man. I loved Corey Schlesinger.
Oh my God, it's tough for a fourth spot. Honestly.
It is. Honestly, in terms of career success,
in terms of career success, can't pick anyone.
No, I know. In terms of personal statistical success, I mean, because Robert Porsche is up there. I think Luther Ellis is up there. But between anybody, if I had to pick one guy, I mean, Billy Sims is another one that you could argue is up there.
Billy Sims.
I'd have to go with Herman Moore. I think Herman Moore is of the guys in Lions history. He's one of the only guys you could argue is in the top 10 at his position all time. Besides the guys we already have up there, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's one of the few that's in the top 10 position of all time. Because Rob Porcher doesn't meet that. Luther Ellis doesn't meet that. I don't consider Billy Sims one of the top 10 greatest of all time. And at the very least, Herman Moore is probably top 15, top 20. But I don't consider anybody else in that range in Lions lore.
Yeah, I'll agree with you.
I'm going to go Herman Moore as the fourth. So we got Bobby Lane, Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and Herman Moore as the Mount Rushmore for the Lions.
Shall we move on to the Tigers?
Let's go ahead and move on to the Tigers. I think there's one easy one, and it's no question who it is. It is Mr. Tiger himself. Rest in peace. He passed away this past week. Yes. One of the most beloved members of the Detroit community and Detroit sports history. Al Kaline is first and foremost on the Tigers Mount Rushmore, and I'd honestly even throw him up on like a City of Detroit sports Mount Rushmore. You know, you don't get named after your your nickname doesn't get called the organization, the team you play for no reason. He absolutely earned it. He embodied everything that a sports fan dreams of. And so Al Kaline is my number one. I'm going to go Ty Cobb as number two.
That was going to be mine. Throw back a century.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Ty Cobb.
And then...
Miggy. I think you got to put Miggy up there.
Okay. This is where I got to tread a little bit more careful. Because you got to look at both 1984 and the most recent era of Detroit sports. We've got two spots left, and there's several guys I would consider to be up here. Jack Morris is a name that I would argue. Alan Trammell, Lou Whitaker, Kirk Gibson, Justin Verlander, Miguel Cabrera. Those are all guys that I would consider to be potential candidates to be on a Mount Rushmore. I will take Tram and Lou off just because I don't think they're quite to the levels of the others. But Jack Morris, Justin Verlander, and Miguel Cabrera are the other names that I would say. So out of those three, we got to pick two. And that's where things get kind of tough. Because you look at two players who won triple crowns at their position. Verlander is a pitching triple crown and an MVP, and Miguel Cabrera as a batting triple crown. You look at one of these guys is a World Series champion. Yeah. For the Tigers and Jack Morris. You look at a guy who's a World Series champion for another team in Verlander, and I think Cabrera won one with the Marlins. I could be wrong.
With a giant asterisk, though.
Yeah.
And was Cabrera on the Marlins? I don't think that he was on the team the year they won.
He was. He was on the Marlins on that 03 championship. So there you go. Let me make sure to be 100%. I believe it was his rookie year. He is a World Series champion in 2003. So yes, he does have a World Series with another team. So does Verlander. He is a two-time MVP.
But how much are you considering for a Tigers Mount Rushmore with the World Series with another team?
I'm not. At all. It bears no weight in it. So it does get very difficult not to include a World Series champion in Jack Morris. It also gets difficult not to include a Triple Crown winner in each of their respective positions. So
can we add a fifth face?
No, it's four people.
We can call a sculptor.
My personal favorite player of all time is Justin Verlander, even though he's a cheater. But every pitcher in baseball is a cheater, so I'm sure Jack Morris cheated too. I also think Miguel Cabrera cheated at some point.
Would you say we should keep Jack Morris represent the 84 team and then choose between Cabrera and Verlander?
Jack Morris is not who I'm trying to decide between right now because Jack Morris is 100% on for me.
Okay.
It's more of who do I pick between Miggy and Verlander? Because in all honesty, of that 2006 to 2013 or 2012 or 13 run for the Tigers, the face of it was Verlander. It wasn't Cabrera.
Yeah.
I don't know.
However, Cabrera has been the face of, it's been a bad team for the past years, but he's been the face of the team since Verlander left.
I don't really consider the Tigers to have a face. Because he's tried to stay out of the media. He doesn't like talking to the media. He doesn't, he's fun. He's interactive with fans and, players in the field, but he's never really embraced being the face of an organization at all Whereas Verlander obviously does. He likes being in the limelight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, obviously a lot of people are soured by what happened with the Astros and Verlander, but can you discredit something someone else did on a different team? Like, can you take what someone else did on, if we're not going to count his World Series on another team, why would we count the scandal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're gonna count the bad, then we got to count the good. And if we're not going to count one, we can't count either. So I'm going to go with Justin Verlander by a hair, just because of the fact that he was the face of this team during that era, when in that 06 2012 era. Miguel Cabrera's obviously lasted longer, and I think is more of a Tiger now than Verlander was, and Verlander obviously has had some of the shine taken off of the paint a little bit. But I just because of the fact that I felt like Verlander kind of got things started with this organization and was kind of
it's so hard to leave either of those guys off.
It really is, but you're not taking off Kaline or Cobb, and you got to have Jack Morris from the '84 team. So it's like, do we put half of a face of each guy?
A really deformed face on your Mount Rushmore.
But I'm gonna go with JV, just because he was the face of that team that when they won, and it hurts, but that's what I'm going with.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And now for the wins. Obviously, there's no question.
You got two big shoo-ins.
You got two big shoo-ins and Gordie Howe and Steve Yzerman. No question there. And this is where things get real hard. Because the Wings is an organization that has a lot of history and a lot of history of success.
Do you put Lidstrom?
He's a guy I would consider up there. And the fact that a guy like Lidstrom is one that you would consider as opposed to just put up there tells you how much success this organization has. But you got to include guys like Nick Lidstrom. Mm-hmm. You got to talk about guys like Ted Lindsay. You got to talk about guys like Alex Delvecchio. You got to talk about guys like Red Kelly. You got to talk about guys like, even Mickey Redman. He's a broadcaster now, along with a past one of the great scorers of the organization's history. You got to talk about guys like Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk.
What about Sawchuk?
Terry Sawchuk, Chris Osgood.
If you want another goalie, you got Hasek too, but
I wouldn't consider Hasek because I think he played his best hockey of his career with the Sabres. But I mean, there's just on the list I have here, I've got Nick Lidstrom, Ted Lindsay, Alex Delvecchio, Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk, Terry Sawchuk, and Chris Osgood. I'm going to take off Delvecchio because I just think he's just a slight step below the rest of these guys. I'm going to take off... This one hurts, but I'm going to take off Chris Osgood. I love Ozzy, but I mean, you can also argue guys like Jim Devellano, Sergei Fedorov, Scotty Bowman, Mike Babcock.
Did you already say Pavel Datsyuk?
Yep, I did put Datsyuk up here. So I've got Nick Lidstrom, Ted Lindsay, Henrik Zetterberg, Pavel Datsyuk, and Terry Sawchuk. And I got
that was the guy whose name I was trying to remember. And I kept thinking, I'm like, what is a guy's name? I can't think of it. And it just finally came to me. But yeah, you already said it.
This is tough.
I think you got to put Lindstrom in there at 3.
Okay, Liddy can be up there. I like the perfect human in here. But then it comes down to we got to pick one guy between Terry Sawchuk, Pav Zetterberg, and Ted Linton. Terrible Ted. I mean, I'm going to take off Ted Lindsay just because we have a representative from the grind line. We have a representative from there. We don't have any Russian 5 representatives.
Nope.
Not having at least one of these 3 hurts. Like, not having all of these guys hurts. They're all Hall of Famers. All arguably some of the greatest at their positions. All some of the greatest of their eras. I don't know, man.
Chelios, by the way, did I miss that?
I'm not going to put Chelios on here because I don't think... I mean, if I'm going to take a defenseman from that era, it's not going to be him. It's going to be Lidstrom. And Chelios spent too much time with Chicago, and because he spent more time in other cities than he did here in his career. Because he played, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons in Chicago, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in Montreal. So he's played pretty much in 3 different cities for the most part. Terry Sawchuk, though. The thing is about Terry Sawchuk is I don't think he ever won a Stanley Cup.
I don't know. I'm going to have to defer to you on this. I don't know. I am stumped.
I mean, he won Hearts, Calder's, Vezinas. I don't think he ever won a Stanley Cup, though.
So narrow it down to two guys.
See, that's what I'm trying to do, and it's hard.
The Canadian came out right there.
I know. No, I don't think he ever won a Stanley Cup, at least not with the Wings. Just kidding. No, never mind. I don't think he did. Yes, he did. Just kidding. He led him to 3 in 5 years. I'm stupid. Never mind. I'm stupid.
See, the Wings are my dark spots.
No, I know. And going that deep into Wings history is where it gets foggy for me, too. But so we've got Gordy, Stevie, Liddy. Oh, man. This is where it gets real tough because you got Hank, who was the captain. You got Pav, who was the A. But you also got Sawchuk, who's arguably one of the greatest goaltend netminders in the history of hockey. If you had to pick one to remove here, who would you say?
I think I just tell you right now, I think I'd keep either Sawchuk or Datsuk.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I was leaning more towards Zetterberg.
Really?
Yeah. I was leaning more towards Zetterberg or Sawchuk, just because Sawchuk won the 3 Cups, Zetterberg, and
so
see, I
let's
put
just take
Zetterberg.
the one we both agree on then.
I don't know. I don't want to leave Datsuk or Zetterberg off.
Well, we didn't want to leave Miggy off when we had to, so
Yeah, that one was a hell of a lot easier than this one, though.
Yeah, we saved the hardest for last.
Yeah, I know.
All right, game time decision because we do got to keep moving here.
I'll go Sawchuk just because we don't have any goalie representation.
All right,
that one hurt. I'm gonna build 2 more statues off to the side of Pav and Hank, though.
So our Red Wings from Mount Rushmore, then to recap, is Gordie Howe, Yzerman, you said Sawchuk and Lindstrom?
Yep. No.
All right.
Sawchuk and Lindstrom, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So, Bleacher Report, well, specifically Zach Buckley Bleacher Report, pun article day, titled The Top 5 Most Underachieving Teams in NBA History. So, Nick, I wanted to go through this and we'll list off the teams, and you and I will just kind of give our opinions on the teams. Do we think they're really underachieving, and then or not? And then at the end, if there was a team that you had in mind that didn't make the list, throw it in there. So I'll start at number 5. We have the 1993-94 Supersonics. So just to recap, this is the Supersonics team with guys like Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, Detlef Schrempf, Sam Perkins. It was a pretty stacked team.
Yeah, any team that sports the glove and Sean Kemp on it's going to be pretty damn nasty.
Yeah. They finished the season 63-9, but they lost in the first round to Denver Nuggets.
Yep. I mean,
that's a pretty big disappointment if you ask me.
Yeah, that's definitely, they were the NBA's first team, first number 1 seed to fall to a number 8 seed since the league went to a 16-team playoff format.
And just to recap who that 8 seed Nuggets team was. That was a team. Let's see how many of these names you recognize. Brian Stith, LaFonso Ellis. This is the starting lineup, by the way. Brian Stith, LaFonso Ellis, Robert Pack, Reggie Williams.
I know Robert Pack,
Mutombo,
Reggie Williams, and Dikembe Mutombo. I know those
names. Mutombo and Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
I know that one. None of those guys I would put up to the level of Sean Kemp or Gary Payton.
Yep.
I mean, that's a pretty big one because that Seattle team really, I think, underachieved for a long time. They never could really get past MJ's Bulls in any type of way. And I think if that team didn't ever have to face MJ's Bulls or Barkley's Suns or the Jazz at all, I think that they probably could have won some titles. So the fact they didn't was really a big one.
Yeah.
But number 4, we've got the 2010-11 Miami Heat, which this was when you first brought this up. The Miami Heat were a team that I immediately thought of. I know they won 3 titles. However,
but this is the
they
first
should've won.
iteration of that team.
It was. However, they should have won a hell of a lot more than 3 with the team that they had. I don't think was it 2 or 3 that they won. It was 3, right?
I believe 3.
Yeah. It just was not enough. I felt like they should have just dominated the entire decade.
2. Sorry.
2. Okay. I felt like they should have just dominated the entire decade, won like 5 straight titles, and been equally as dominant as the Lobs.
Like LeBron said, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. Not 6.
So he even not 7. He overestimated themselves.
You should have stopped at not 1. That was it. Just 2. Not 1, you just 2.
But for them to lose in that year to the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Finals, or was that the year the Celtics won?
No, that was the year they lost to the Mavs.
That was the year they lost to the Mavs. Okay.
Correct. Celtics beat the Lakers.
That's right. That's right. Well, no, I'm talking in the Eastern Conference Finals. Did they lose to the Celtics back then? But no.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So this is the year they lost to the Mavs.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, looking at that Mavs roster, how the hell did that team win? Because I remember we had this discussion at I think it was your birthday last year at Dick O'Dowd's. It was your cousin. It was your cousin, and everybody else was arguing about LeBron, and then I was like, what? And then I brought up the this Mavs team that beat him, and then he started going through the roster. He's like, they got Dirk. And then I showed him the extra roster. He goes, how the hell did? And then he brought up some random name. I was like, are you kidding me? And then he goes, how the hell did LeBron lose to this team? But in all honesty, that was one of the wildest upsets I've ever seen. I'm surprised this team isn't even higher on this list than number 4, to be honest with you.
I mean, let's not totally brush off that Mavericks team, though. They did win 57 games that year. Rick Carlisle is still a fantastic coach. He was still a coach of that team back then. And they did have a Hall of Famer in Dirk Nowitzki. But yeah, no, it's still, I think, to be honest with you, that number 4 spot is more of a cumulative to me, at least for the Miami Heat, because like they just underachieved as a whole during their whole run. Despite winning 2 championships, like you said, they should have won more.
They should have won at least 3 or 4. There's no question.
All right, speaking of the Mavericks, your number 3 is your 06-07 Dallas Mavericks. Now,
this team won 67
This team won 67 games. Starting lineup of Dirk, you had Josh Howard, Jason Terry, Devin Harris, and Eric Dampier, as well as Jerry Stack. That name should sound familiar to Pistons fans.
Didn't they have Michael Finley too, or was that later?
No, that was earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. But this team lost, and we believe team, the Baron Davis Warriors.
Yep.
I remember this series so well. This was it just for this series.
This was like, what? I missed that. You what?
I said this is the year they lost the We Believe team, which is the Baron Davis Warriors. I remember this series so well because this is the year I was like a bandwagon fan just for the series for the Warriors. I wanted to see that upset happen so badly.
I remember that We Believe Warriors team. That was a fun team to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
That team that had no business being where they were, and just kind of came out of nowhere. Baron Davis with that giant ass beard. That was just a fun team, and for them to take down this Mavericks team was wild. I'm not gonna lie, this team did underperform. I would put this team like lower on the list than that Heat team though, because I know they won 67 games, and I know they were a damn good team.
I think it's losing the first round is big.
Yeah, no question.
It's a big jab right there.
No question.
You want to take the next one?
Yeah. The 2015-16 Golden State Warriors, which are the team that lost to the Cavaliers. Now, mind you, there is a lot of controversy around this NBA Finals, whether or not the NBA rigged it.
But I feel like this is the one that's going to kind of challenge our definition of underachieving.
Right.
Because this team did set the record for most wins in an NBA
right.
season. And they went to the NBA Finals.
Right.
So, like, in general, if I told you a team is going to set the record for most wins and go to the NBA Finals, you said they had a fantastic season. But do you think because they set that that anything less than a championship was suddenly going to be an underachievement?
Yes. I think anything less for a championship for that team was an underachievement, no question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the numerics of it all. I mean, they were one of the highest scoring offenses in the history of the game, if not the highest. They set the record for the most wins. They had, I believe, a unanimous MVP in Steph Curry that year. Or was that the next year? No, he was the unanimous MVP that year. They had back-to-back runner-up for DPOY and Draymond Green. They had Andre Iguodala playing great defense. The fact that they didn't win the NBA title was a disappointment. Would I put them this high on the list? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was a total implosion in the NBA Finals that was unbelievable. I still don't know if the NBA Finals that year was entirely legit, but that's what that's beside the point. I think there were some sketchy things that went on, but I think there is in every year. The NBA Finals, the NBA loves to use officiating to drum up drama, and they got exactly what they wanted in this game or in that series. So, but that's beside the point. This was a massive disappointment for that Warriors team, no question.
They did bounce back, though, to their defense.
Yeah, they won the very next year.
All right, so according to Bleacher Report, the number one most underachieving team in NBA history is and this should South Florida Pistons fans, the 03-04 Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers super team consisting of Kobe, Shaq, Karl Malone, Gary Payton that lost to the Pistons in the finals 4-1.
Arguably the greatest sports moment in a lot of Detroit Pistons fans' lives.
For me, it was. And and this is actually because the Heat was the first one to come to mind for me. This was the second.
Oh, no question. I'll be honest with you. The Heat was the first one for me, and then I thought a little bit, and the Lakers, albeit it wasn't the first to come to mind, it was the bigger one in my mind. You had four of the greatest players in the history of the sport on one team.
Yeah.
That tells you, I mean, granted, two of them were past their prime and old as dirt, but they were still very effective and obviously very important to this team because when Karl Malone went down, the Lakers hardly tread water. So that team was obviously a team that was a powerhouse. It was the original quote-unquote super team that was put together plastically. Yeah, I can't think of the other word.
Artificially?
Artificially. That's the word. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, you got a 40-year-old Karl Malone with like a 36-year-old Gary Payton.
Right, but you also had... They were past their prime, but Karl Malone was still very important to that team. There's no question about it.
Yeah, he was still putting up like 13-9.
Right.
Gary Payton was still averaging like 15 points a game, and this defense was still there. Like the defense didn't go anywhere.
Right. This team was a very good basketball team that, in all honesty, really did disappoint in the end. I think it was more of a chemistry issue. They didn't like each other. In fact, they hated each other, and it imploded on them when they went up against a team that had arguably the best chemistry of any team, and not just that year, but in sports in general. I mean, that team's chemistry from the Going to Work crew was unlike none other I've ever seen. I've never seen a team gel so well than that 2004 Pistons team. So, they
were a pleasure to watch.
Hell yeah.
It was art. On watching that.
It was quite literally Larry Brown, the coach of that team, had a famous saying of "We're going to play the right way." It was quite literally the definition of playing the right way. It was a treat to watch. We'll never get to see anything like that ever again. But that Lakers team, without a doubt, disappointed. They went into the season with astronomical expectations to win an NBA title, if not more than one, if they stayed together, and they came up short.
I mean, you can even argue even though they did finish first in their division, you could argue that they even underachieved a bit in the regular season. They won 56 games, which is good, but you'd expect a team like this to win 60 games.
Mind you, Karl Malone missed 3 months of that season. So that was
still a Kobe Shaq Phil
right,
Jackson
but that was
team.
a big reason. That was a big reason why they only won 56 games was because when Karl Malone went down because they started 20-5.
Yeah,
they started that year 20-5, and then Malone collided with the son Scott Williams and went down with a knee injury and missed 3 months, and the Lakers went 22-17 without him. And then as in the end of the year, they finished 14-4 in the final 18 to get up to 56-26. So without, obviously, Karl Malone was something important to that team, and he wasn't able to. He missed 3 months, so that team wasn't as good then. But winning only 56 games, you could argue, is a little bit of a disappointment. But again, a lot of it was because of injury. But for them not to win an NBA title, because they did breeze through the Western Conference. They only lost 5 games going through the entire West bracket to get to the NBA Finals before they lost to the Pistons. So they obviously were the best team in the West, and then they ended up facing the best team in the NBA that year.
So do you think this is the most underachieving team, or is this just a classic case of a team looks better on paper than they are on?
I'll consider it the most underachieved team because they never won a title. They only won 56 games.
They were only together for 1 year, right?
Right. I think it was 1 year. I think Karl Malone, or one of those, I think one of the older two stayed together for another year. I could be wrong.
I don't think so, but I'll find out right now. But
oh, no, just kidding. Yes, Karl Malone was still with no, never mind. The entire team imploded. Lakers traded away both O'Neal and Payton and parted ways with head. Yeah, the Lakers traded away both O'Neal and Payton and parted ways with head coach Phil Jackson. Malone never played another game and retired in February 05.
Remember the Pistons broke up a super team.
They did. If only we could get that to happen again. But yeah, I'd say they're number 1, and I'd probably put the Heat number 2, and then I'd.
Is that the only team on this list that imploded after losing?
No, because the Warriors just added to it.
Yeah.
The Mavericks still kind of sort of technically stayed together because Dirk was still there. The Heat were together another year. The Sonics, I think, were still together for a little while.
No, they were still together.
Yeah.
They even went back to the finals, I think, 2 years later, or 2 years later. The Sonics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, no, they won. They went back to the NBA finals in 95, 96.
Right, the year that Jordan's Bulls year with the 82 wins.
Yeah.
And won the NBA title.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd say that's one that is probably number 1. I'd probably put the Heat number 2. And then I put the Warriors 3, Mavericks 4,
And have any
Sonics 5.
Do you have any additional ones that come to mind?
The only one I can really think of is the Lob City Clippers.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because they were a team that, in all honesty, really was built to be a super team. They had the pieces in Chris Paul, who's arguably the greatest point guard of all time. They have Blake Griffin in his prime and DeAndre Jordan in his prime. And then they had pieces around them. I believe they had Lou Williams on that team. I can't remember who else, but they had some pieces around them that should, and Doc Rivers being the head coach, who's obviously got the pedigree to win. It was a team that really should have won an NBA title and just never could get past themselves. They just couldn't. They could never get anywhere with that team for some reason. Just never were able to win. So that's my pick, and I do have one more, but I want to hear yours first.
Mine would be, and I think this is more of what the team was on paper because they didn't really mesh that well in the hardwood, but the 2011-2012 Oklahoma City Thunder, that's the Thunder team with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. That, although I think the thing going against them was all these guys were super young, so they didn't quite, except for KD. KD was still he had some years under his belt, but Harden and Westbrook were still super young. They didn't quite know how to play together, so I just feel like Scott Brooks really couldn't put all the pieces together, but they had all the pieces there to be a super team, and I just wish they would have stayed together because that would have been an unreal team. But,
I actually have 2 more. I'm going to go with the one that is less sexy first. It's going to be the Atlanta Hawks from the mid-2000s that were always in first place in the Eastern Conference with Al Horford, Paul Millsap, Jeff Teague, that team always doing something.
Could never get it done.
Josh Smith was on there too. Josh Smith was on the team and could never get it done in the playoffs. My second team, though, is the Steve Nash Phoenix Suns from 04 to 2010. The Steve Nash, because they had Steve Nash, Sean Marion, and Amari Stoudemire, and that team was so freaking fun to watch. They won a ridiculous amount of games in the regular season, but could never win in the playoffs. And it was all because they couldn't figure out how to run a half-court offense, which is what playoff basketball was. They could only run the fast break, and they were shut down every single time they got in the playoffs. But I think Steve Nash had like 3 MVPs on that team. But that 04 to 2010 Phoenix Suns team was so exciting to watch, but they never could could make it happen in the playoffs.
You know what? That pick actually reminds me of another team, the late 2000s Houston Rockets that had T-Mac and Yao Ming.
T-Mac and Yao, yep.
That would always finish towards the top of the Western Conference, but kept getting bounced in the first round like every single year.
Yep.
Like T-Mac became notorious for not being past the first round.
100%.
But, yeah. Anyway, that's all I got for under.
That's all I got too. So, but anyways, guys, so that means that we're done for the day. We will catch you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Real Fan Report. Andrew, thank you for joining me as well, and thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast for hosting us each week. We will catch you guys next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay indoors, and try to stay sane. Hopefully, we get sports back soon. But you guys have a good week, and thanks again. Peace.
Peace. Wash your hands.